Anchor of the week.
Wiggle. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Anchor of the Week, where you do not have to agree with us to be friends with us.
That's right.
It's a Courtney and Sadie episode.
Yes, which I am dubbing now as, like, I feel like when we do these episodes, it feels like Friendship 101.
Yeah.
Like, welcome to Friendship 101 classes with Courtney and Sadie.
That's actually such a, we need like a, what's it called? Banner or something flashes across the screen.
Or like t-shirts or like matching tattoos.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so
You don't have any matching tattoos with anyone, do you?
no, but I think I have a folder on my Instagram that's so cheesy. It's like saved like matching tattoo ideas or something like that, or like no, it's on TikTok because there was specifically a tattoo artist that kept popping up on my For You page that was like, these are the tattoos you should be getting with your best friend or like with your husband or whatever.
And they're fun. Like
they're fun. Yeah.
Unique complementary
Exactly.
things.
Like they're like, one of them was 2 cards, right? Like one was like Ace of Spades, Ace of Hearts sort of thing.
Yeah.
Where it's like not inherently a matching, but it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, maybe.
Sorry
one
about that.
day.
Yeah. That was just... I have a couple. So anyway,
If you'd like to share, please.
No, I don't, actually. Thank you. Thanks for asking anyway.
But before we dive into today's conversation,
Every week. Yeah.
did you guys guess who's oh my gosh. Rewind. Did you guys guess who the intro was for last week's episode? It was Fede! We'll see if we cut that out. That'd be funny if we didn't.
Either way, here we are now.
Anyway,
new episode.
Fede. Yeah.
It was Fede.
It was silly.
Just silly little things that we do with our silly little friends. Also, I'm doing my lean again.
Yeah, we've established that Courtney likes to lean when she has conversations, but I think it shows that you're like in it.
I'm interested.
Yeah,
I want to.
You're not the type of person. Actually, not you in general, but I think people, whenever they're like lean back, they're like casual. But in my head, they're not like, oh, I'm like invested.
Yeah, well, that's because I have no casual bone in my body. The most casual thing about me is the fact that I own Converse.
Honestly, that is the most casual fact. I don't know, and like the all black, I think that's pretty casual. Not like casual in a bad way, but like that makes you less
simple. Someone once told me, and I'm gonna butcher it, but it was I'm extra, but like I'm extra in some things, but like really chill in like the things that like really like matter. You know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is the best, I think, compliment I ever got. I wish I knew it word for word, but it was so many years ago.
That's nice.
But I was like, that's great.
Also, isn't it interesting how someone can tell you something at one point, and it can be a very like fleeting comment, you know, or like just like, a little encouragement even, but that's something that like you were like, oh wow, that is going in my brain now to help me be more of who I am. You know what I mean?
100%. Well, because it really it like went against the lie that I thought that I was just too extra for everyone all the time.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
cheers. I saw that.
Thanks, Martha, for telling me that in 2018 or whatever.
Ooh, shout out Martha. That reminds me of like a video I saw the other day of this girl saying how she was talking about type A's and type B's, right? And so she said, she's like, I will be a type A, but at my core, I'm a type B, is what she was saying. But she's like, if I'm in a space with other type A's, then I can feel like I can be a type B because there are other type A's in this space.
No, I totally get that.
And I was just like, whoa. I was like, I relate to that because I feel like I'm type A, which is, you know, if you don't know, like very, driven, concentrated, organized, whatever. And type B's are more like relaxed, easygoing, flexible. So that's like the basic description of them. But she was like, if I need to be type A, I will be. She's like, if I see something's not right or something's wrong or there's a mess that needs to be fixed, needs to be organized, she's like, I hop in, I do it. She's like, but at my core, she's like, I'm easygoing. I just want to relax. I want to chill. And I was like, interesting. I feel like
very fascinating.
Not to put myself in a box of either or, but I feel like I do sometimes. If I could be type B forever, I would be type B forever.
You would be.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. But every type B needs a bit of type A in them. And every type A needs a bit of type B in them.
Amen.
That's why I'm an AB positive blood type. So
I don't even know what my blood type is.
I'm pretty sure. I'm a confident 89%. That's what my blood type is, if I remember correctly.
Mom, if you're watching this, comment my blood type. Just kidding. I don't know if I doubt she even knows my blood type is.
That's
you know
actually
what I mean? Like,
so funny. The comments just Sherry by me.
It really
It's like, O negative, no context.
oh yeah, that's it. Nothing. Anyway, so what are we chatting about today, Courtney?
We're talking about, well, as we always do, friends. Friendship. But no, something that we talked about a little while ago, and it kind of still has come up a bit. But I think this is a very, I don't know, it was an interesting moment that we had.
Yeah.
It was you, me, and it was our friend Laura. And which you guys will know Laura too, from episode number 2, of the new season. Sorry, not of forever. But we were chatting about like, and you were frustrated because was it like you felt like just sometimes like people were just too shallow.
Yeah.
You know, and that got us into a conversation of like, sometimes people like, what's the difference in friendships between shallow, deep? Does it always need to be shallow, or does it always need to be deep? Is some sort of shallowness okay? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was a very interesting thing. Yeah, and I think it just opened up an interesting conversation. And then you had an experience last night.
Yeah.
Do you want to share with that? That could
Sure.
be our starting anecdote.
Yeah, where we're going.
Yeah.
So last night I got invited to this like producers and actors and directors like networking party. And
Look at our girl go. That's all I got to say.
It was actually so fun, but funnily enough, leading up to it, I think, and that was in the evening, you know, and so I had lived a whole day before that. I opened at the Ren and like did a whole barista shift, and then we had worship practice after that. So it was just a lot of like my brain like working. And it was funny, after we finished worship practice, I was like sitting with our friend Alyssa, and I was like, I don't think I even want to go tonight. Like, I don't think I have the energy to have like, I think what I said was like superficial fake conversations, you know?
Interesting. So interesting that you were already expecting that.
Exactly. And then we had her and I had a whole discussion about, sometimes I struggle in general going to like actors, like the networking parties, but very specifically like actors networking parties, because, and this is me just being very broad and vague, or not vague, but yeah, lumping all actors into this, but I think sometimes actors can just perform all the time. So even, and I find myself struggling with this as well, but just performing, especially in those environments where you're around other actors, you're just like, I'm here, hey, yeah, this is what I do. You know, it's like this kind of attitude around who you are as an actor, as a performer. And so I was like, I just don't think I have, the capacity to go into that and be that, you know? And then she said something like, she's like, well, don't, like, go in and be real. And maybe that will bring, you know, the realness out of everybody else, which goes back to the conversation that we had with Laura about, you know, depth and shallowness in friendships, because you said something to me that day that really stuck with me of like, well, maybe because I feel like me as a person, I go deep very quickly and I want to go deep, and sometimes people don't. And so instead of me getting bitter or me getting upset with people who don't, I can be the person to help bring that depth, you know?
Yeah.
And not expecting everyone to go deep, but just being willing to, you know, like bring it there. And if they want to take it that way, they can. And if they don't, I don't need to get upset by that, you know?
Yeah.
But then coming back to last night, I was like, okay, cool. Like, I was on the bus, still on the bus there, contemplating whether I wanted to go.
No way.
Like, I was just like on the bus. I'm like, do I go? Blah, blah.
Do I even? Yeah.
And then it was funny, and I was like praying, because I was just like, God, do I go? Like, do I go or do I go home? Just tell me, you know? And he was like, you can't go, but I can go for you. And I was
that
like,
plot twist, bait and switch.
Literally. And I was like, all right. And he's like, I will go before you, basically. And I was like, okay, bet. Because I was at a point where I was like, I cannot walk into this place.
Yeah.
And so yeah, you know, went there and actually had such a great time. It was very low key, and everyone, like, there were some people I had known from this other thing that I had done last year, and so it was nice to see familiar faces, but also meet new people. But even the conversations at the networking party, like, a lot of them were very deep. Like, a lot of it was, you know, networking as well, but then we got to a point where we were talking about just ideas and things we wanted to, you know, dive into in our different projects and all this kind of stuff. And so one girl brought up, like, how do we show more emotion in our work? You know, so there was a group of us that was having a conversation about emotions and how to appropriately and healthily show your emotions as an actor and as writers. And so honestly, like, it was so great. And there were some very, like, silly conversations as well. But I think that just goes to show the balance of both, you know? So yeah, it was great. And it helped me be like, okay, yeah, I can be real and not have to be performative, especially in an atmosphere where that's almost expected.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm already like noticing maybe a difference between being shallow and being fake.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's a distinct difference because, okay, I'm going to talk about me, right? I don't think that I'm like a shallow person or like, I mean, I think hopefully you've listened to the podcast. I do have deep thoughts and, you know, like I'm a deep, you know, but like to me, it takes so much more of my energy to go deep. And we're different in this, which actually I'm like, I don't think I ever realized the extent of it. Because for you, it takes so much to stay on the shallow. I guess like stay treading water maybe potentially or stay floating.
Yeah.
But you want to go deep. For me, I'm like, I spend so much of my life just in the deep, in the depth.
Interesting.
Also like taking care of other people and like all of this, like just from the nature of my role and my responsibility in my work, that sometimes I'm like, honestly, can we just like talk about nothing? Like I want to hang out with you, but like, can we just talk about literally nothing that has any sort of like consequence? Like nothing changes us talking about it, not talking about it almost. And for me, that's like the most relaxing is when I can just faff. You know, like for me, it's like not everything has to be this deep, weighty moment. But I wonder if that's also, I don't know, personality. I mean, one, I think it's important that we can both float on the surface and dive deep. Yeah. And I think we've established that. And I think anyone can objectively say that as a human, we should be able to play the difference.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
But it is just interesting to me, the fact that we'll have one that's probably our easiest. And do you think that's personality?
I wonder, or if it's also just like a product of your environment and your family as well.
Maybe.
You know? Because, I mean, not saying that my family didn't go deep, but I think my family did, which is almost kind of like why I seek it out in other relationships, you know? But my family's also very silly, so I don't know. You know, like, I don't know.
I mean, mine too, and both.
Yeah. But I don't know. I don't know what that is. I'm curious because you said, like, you go deep because of the nature of your role and everything. And you're so, like, you kind of are always deep. Do you feel like, is that more on a personal, like, intimate in your solo times, or is that mainly in your relationships?
I think both, to be fair.
Okay.
Like, sometimes, like, we had our like self-aware episode. Can you be too self-aware? And I think I'm so self-aware. Like I do anything, say anything, and I'm like, okay, that goes back all these things. You know, for example, okay, this might be a little bit of a story time tangent, but like I had gluten the other day. Okay,
Courtney's gluten.
I'm gluten free. All right, I'm a few things free. Let me just tell you that much. And I got really upset about it. I'm really upset with myself, you know? Like, and by the way, we're a couple days on and I'm still paying for the consequences. Yeah. So here we are. If this all of a sudden cuts in the middle of it, you know why. But I realized the next day that I was like emotionally triggered.
Interesting.
Because I've had such a strange, and my testimony on this kind of stuff is, it's a lot and it's layered and it's wild. Yeah. So we're not going to go into all of that. But it triggered a lot of things from my past and old mindsets and I had already kind of been struggling. And so it was like this whole thing of like, I'm like, Courtney, why can't you just leave it at like, I ate gluten and I'm a bit upset, but whatever. Yeah. But I'm like, now I'm like hyper, like, okay, but I thought this and that. And then last night I was thinking this, but that's linked to that. And this like caused this. And the only reason I'm thinking about this is because it's triggering that and whatever. And I'm like literally cut yourself a break, you know, but it's like, you know, too much almost. Do you know what I mean? But I also think in my relationships as well, it's like, and I don't want anyone listening to this be like, okay, I can't talk about anything deep with Courtney ever again. But because, I mean, like, I feel like so much is required of me. My most restful is the people that don't ask anything of me.
Interesting, yeah. I feel like we've had this conversation before briefly. Yeah. But continue, sorry.
So it's like if you just want to lie on the couch with me and like have a giggle over Bill Skarsgård Nosferatu edits. I said what I said.
Yeah.
We will not be diving into that any deeper. No.
If you're curious,
stay curious.
Stay curious.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Or just kind of like, just like have a giggle. And so But I also understand that not everyone's operating at the same depth as me. So then in relationship, if
Yeah.
you've only been with people that are more on a like, I guess superficial level, you want to come home and be deep. I've only been deep with people.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'm like, please get the weights
want
off me. I
to-
want to like float to the surface for a couple of minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
but like, how do we?
But it's also
Yeah.
it's interesting because you say that because yeah, we are opposite in that. But in my head, I'm like, okay, so then how does our friendship work then?
Okay, you know what?
You know what I mean? Because literally in my day, I think about
Sorry.
especially working. No, you're okay. I'm gonna let you go there. But like working customer service.
Yeah.
And I always feel like you have to be on for customer service. You know, you're like chatting up every single person that
Yeah.
walks in, and then just like coming here to the cave and working, and I'm just like chatting with people doing stuff that I'm like, okay, now for me to relax, I almost need to like. Let's talk about things. You know, to like get like deep. But at the same time, I don't know. I feel like recently I've been checking myself because now as I'm processing this, I'm like in a season right now where I'm not watching. Have I talked about this? Like I'm not watching any sort of media that is super like dark, intense, dramatic, except I just started adolescence. So I'm kind of moving out of that. But like before that, I was like only watching like K-pop variety shows and like Seinfeld. Like I'm watching all those really silly light things at night because I realize that sometimes I am so in the deep
Interesting.
that I need something to kind of like to pull me back
Pull you back up.
But it isn't generally that's not how I go. So I'm really curious what you were going to say about how our friendship works.
I already think I think we say that deep is authentic and shallow is fake.
Yeah, that is the natural.
And
mindset.
I don't think that's right. Because we're real.
Yeah.
We're real ones.
So cheesy.
It was the pause where we were like, are we gonna do
Are
this?
we gonna fist bump?
Yeah, we're
It
gonna
felt
fist
like
bump.
it needed.
I needed the fist bump. Because that's the thing, is like people are like, oh, like, but you're being shallow. But I'm like, maybe we're not talking about anything super deep, but you can still be real in the shallowness of conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
And by not talking about anything like, how's your heart? Sometimes I'm like,
Right.
do not ask me how my heart is. Enough about me.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
Interesting. Okay.
that,
I see where you're going.
yeah, because I think sometimes I'm like, honestly, like, you're not being a good friend by like making me think about me more than I already think about me.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's like, I will bring stuff up with people if like I need to process, whatever, but the right people, the right times. And like, of course, it's like, hey, like, how are you doing? Like, how are you actually doing? I want a genuine answer from you.
Right. But I'm not going to like give you everything.
Yeah.
And you're not going to pry for like every single ounce of my heart right now as well, you know? But like checking in with yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe that. I don't know. Some thoughts there.
That's actually interesting because I find does this come back to the whole like people who are in friendships? Okay, let's see how I want to word this. When you're in a friendship and you're just a person who just wants to fix other people. And so it's like you live in the deep, but only because you think I can save people. You know what I mean?
That's so, because people are drowning.
Exactly. But that is not the way to be in friendship, because that's just still putting you at the like you're the one dictating. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if someone else isn't going deeper, if someone else isn't healing, whatever, because of what you're doing, then
Yeah, that's
you're
so
then
interesting.
thinking that it's all about you. It's just like savior complex, but in a friendship.
Don't name it the savior complex.
Yeah,
It's
that's
a
pretty
complex.
It's
I'm not
complex. Wow.
complex. Yeah, that was a...
Wow, McAlpine?
No, her name is
I don't
Gracie
know. why-
McLeod, I think.
Oh,
Is her name
okay.
Grace McLeod, maybe? Anyway, that was my theme song of a not healthy time. Let me tell you that
I
much.
remember that song.
Yeah, it's a great one. Cried a lot to that one. Anyway, moving on. See? Too deep.
Too deep.
Too deep.
Cut it out.
Get it out.
Cut it out.
I don't want to be that deep. I had a thought before I started singing, and I'm like, how many times is this going to happen to me every episode? That that
Break out
actually
in the
happens.
song. Hey.
Look I just did the lean forward. I
did.
said, you want a song, Sadie? I'll give you a song.
Oh, say.
Can you see?
You're welcome. You're welcome for that. It's our little song break as we buffer the
As we
conversation.
buffer the conversation. Okay, this is so not to do with anything.
Uh-huh.
But I think it's great to give shout outs to people.
Yeah. Yeah, please. Who are
that we don't know.
Oh, really? Please continue.
Well, I've been on and on. Obviously, I'm a podcast fan. Shock. About the Mature Me podcast with Rich Wilkerson Jr.
Okay, yeah.
And I realized the reason that I like it so much is because I've never identified with a 4-year-old man so much in my life. I'm like, this man is me. And he'll just start singing. And then get everyone to sing with him. And like, and then he'll do this thing where he'll like make jokes that are like, shouldn't have made, or like that could really get like clipped wrong.
Yeah.
And he'll like self-talk to himself in the third person and be like, Rich, why'd you do that? Rich, you gotta stop saying that.
I love that.
Imagine me be like, Courtney, why'd you start singing again?
Courtney.
Anyway, great podcast. Highly recommend it. But I just wanted to share that with you, I guess.
Hey.
For no real reason, I don't think,
okay.
other than
But hey,
it's been on my mind.
you can share whatever's on your heart.
Because guess what? That was me being a little shallow.
Being a little shallow. Shallow in a good way.
No.
Oh.
I want to sing Shallow by A Star
In the Wow. This is where this is going. This is my problem, Courtney, is I genuinely, though, like, in my head, there's songs there nonstop. Have we talked about? Okay.
You've definitely talked about this.
There was a point a couple years ago where I, like, as a joke, I was like, you know what? I'm going to keep tally of every song that I sing today. Because it will literally get triggered from a phrase that someone says, and I'll just start singing a line from it. One day, 42 different songs.
42.
Yeah. It's embarrassing, and I feel like it's a world record.
I don't think that's embarrassing. I feel like it's more like a savant or something like that.
What is a savant? That's a new word for me.
Before I give the wrong definition. It's like someone, it's kind of like a prodigy.
Oh,
but like, I don't think you have to be young.
I receive.
Watch it be like something.
It's actually horrible. It's like a mental condition or something like that. But it is crazy how many songs live in my head nonstop.
Okay, a savant refers to a person with exceptional skills or brilliance in a specific area, often despite having significant intellectual or social impairments. So despite the fact that you can't go shallow and you have to stay deep, I admire you for your brilliance.
I'm gonna cry. Oh my gosh.
We should do it. Actually, how many episodes have you? In the shot.
Honestly, what you were gonna say, we should do a compilation of
how many times
I've cried.
Sadie cries all the time.
I don't know what it is,
but it's always from mostly
it's from
laughing.
laughing. But like, I think it's a black thing, and I'm not just saying that like this, but like, I think about all of my family gatherings in the past, and when I tell you my aunt would be in tears because we would be laughing, and she'd have to. Oh, LOL. The camera stopped. We'll bring it up here in a second.
but Sadie
I
has to finish the
story.
Like, actually, this was a whole ploy, so you can't see her cry.
Exactly. I planned it out this way. But literally, she would be crying so much, and she would have like napkins. She'd have to have napkins.
No way.
She'd be wiping her tears because we'd be laughing so hard. Anyway.
Well, I'm so glad that you shared that story with us.
You're welcome. Hey, shout out to my Aunt Vicky.
Hey, we love Aunt Vicky.
Yeah.
I don't know you, Vicky, but Courtney Madison, set up. I did it.
You did the Rich Wilkerson.
There we go.
Anyway,
back to friendship and being shallow.
Yeah, but also hilarious how this has come from. Like, this whole episode has gone from, let's talk about this topic. Let's get a little deep. But now we're coming back up. You know what I mean? Like,
and maybe our listeners will disagree with us, okay?
Maybe.
But I think allowing ourselves to be a bit shallow is, and by shallow, let's like rebrand that.
Yeah, let's
not
do it.
fake.
Exactly.
Not projecting, but like more lighthearted.
Yeah.
I think it's improved our podcast and our way that we host our podcast.
Honestly, yeah.
Because I think before it was such a pressure of almost being like a news outlet or critical thinking or, you know, where it was like,
we need to
stay on it. We need to produce good quality content. And it's true. We do. But I think the moments of the lightheartedness, but here's that thing again, right? It's like, okay, it's giving me Ecclesiastes 3. There's a time for everything.
Yeah.
And like, I remember, to go deep again, My last bout with depression, it was a pretty long one. I mean, you were there for the thick of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I remember one of the key things that really stood out to me was I was hearing someone talk about Ecclesiastes 3, and it's like there is a time. I don't remember the exact because it changes based on translations.
Yeah, under the sun.
But like, there's a time for joy and there's a time for mourning, essentially. And being like, if you do not have the times of mourning, you will not know what is joy.
Yeah, exactly.
Sort of a thing. Which, by the way, amen. Thank you, Jesus.
Yeah,
when I said that
seriously.
was so healing to be like, there's nothing like. Of course, like we don't want to be in those seasons of depression.
Right.
And we have to believe that God has more for us. You know what I mean? But sometimes it's so hard when you know that to be in them and be like, well, then I'm just wasting my time away. You know, I'm really trying to get out of this.
Interesting.
You know?
Yeah.
But then realizing that, like, because of the depth of this, I know I will get out of it and I'll be able to enjoy things so much more.
Yeah.
Because I know what it's like to be so on the other end.
Yeah.
And honestly, that is so true. Right? And yeah, okay, laughing at this, now we're talking about this on the podcast. Like, what a ping pong.
Yeah,
you know what
seriously.
I mean?
Yeah.
But I think that's true even in just like the depth of friendships. If we're just deep all the time in a friendship, if we're just going deep, you know, like, then that just kind of becomes a normal. And I've been in friendships, and I remember recently, a couple years ago, being like, me and this person, like, we don't have fun anymore.
Right.
The only way that we know how to bond now is through like very deep things.
Yeah.
And it created an unhealthy relationship. And I remember kind of like near towards the end of the way that relationship, you know, it ended that, you know. And I was like, is it wrong of me to be like, hey, can we just like have fun for a bit? Like, what if we like went one day just talking about like tee things?
Yeah.
You know, because it was almost like we spent so much time in the depth that we got trapped there.
Yeah. That's what I'm literally thinking about this, like from the water analogy, right? Because I'm like, if we're in the deep nonstop, we will drown.
Wow.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm literally thinking, I'm like, if we need to be in the shallow so that we can breathe again, you know, so we can like be silly and be fun.
Yeah.
And then to go deep, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, but if you're living in the deep, you're just living in the dark. You're living in the dark, not in like bad, evil dark, but like you're living in your melancholy and yourself.
Yeah.
Like it's almost, as someone I feel like I've been through moments and seasons of being very just like deep in my head and wanting that kind of depth from people. But this is, again, going back to the conversation that we had a few weeks ago with Laura about like moving to London and being able to go deep with people, but be in a community that I'm also like, oh, I can be light.
Yeah.
You know, and like it can be silly and goofy and you know, like happy and joyful, and like there's still depth in that.
Exactly.
You know, it's
and
like
that's
not
the
negating
thing.
the depth. Yeah.
Like, yeah, I got the aggressive point out. But that like, and this is what I think, why I think I'm so worked up about this, because I can come off quite shallow, superficial. I thrive in like the meeting people kind of like, when you walk into a room and introduce myself to a stranger, I can so do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I know that it's like how I'm kind of conditioned, wired, whatever, you know what I mean? And like we all have things, and then other people come in and bring in like a super deep conversation that honestly, I don't know, I just don't feel like I'm built for that necessarily.
Yeah.
I still do it, but you know. But it's this whole idea of that just because I'm quote unquote good at the superficial does not mean that like there's no weight to it.
Right.
You know? And it's like I can still bring the fullness of me to a shallow situation.
Yeah.
Like you can still have meaning.
Exactly. It's also making me think from a Christian perspective.
Yeah.
Like when we're talking to people about God, right? Or even if we look at Jesus, for example, in the Bible, Jesus didn't come and was like preaching to all these people and immediately going into like, all right, let me tell you about like what God is going to bring and like getting super depth. Like he was telling stories.
Exactly.
He was talking to people through stories and things that they understood. And if we're trying to be Christians in a world that don't know Christ, we can't just go in there with all of this Christianese language of, you know, the stripes of Jesus will heal you, blah, blah, you know, and like we can come to them in a very quote unquote shallow way, you know, if we're keeping with the language, but still have the depth of like the gospel behind us.
Exactly.
You know? And and I think that's like the most authentic and healthy way to, I think, move through life.
Yeah.
Now that we're talking about it. We're bringing it in. It's like
it's all coming.
it's all coming.
I've seen the imagery. This entire
I've been watching it.
I've been watching it play out. Oh, fun! Two visual people.
Look at us.
But yeah, I mean, not to like dwell on the Christian-y part of it either, but I think sometimes in like the rejection or like the fear, not fear. We don't want to just be with like the actual fake performative superficiality of the world.
Yeah.
So I think we do a really good job of like, okay, bring the truth, bring authenticity, bring that depth. And then we get so stuck in the depth. And I'm like, sometimes I'm like, do Christians even know how to have fun?
Right.
And I think a lot of people think that.
Yeah.
You know, and I think just even like culturally speaking, now a lot of people are like, well, Christians don't have fun.
Right.
And it's like, no, we just don't do it in the way that you do it necessarily. But I'm like, we should be the ones having the most fun.
Exactly.
In the Bible, God talks so much about celebration.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like everything had a celebration. Every time he did something, there was a celebration.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's remember, enjoy.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, we should be the people that other people look at and go like, how do they have so much fun?
Right. How are they so joyful? How are they yeah, exactly.
But also so real and so authentic.
Yeah.
We can have an amazing conversation, laugh about singing Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper. And then all of a sudden we're like, yeah. And then in my struggle with depression, this is what it was. But this is what God spoke.
And we're not bogged down by it. Like we're not burdened by it as well because the burden of Jesus.
Come on.
Is easy and his yoke is light. Is that I always get the
yoke is easy, burden is light.
The yoke is easy and the burden is light. Amen. And we're free in him. So there's literally nothing that we have to carry.
Yeah.
In the depth.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Wow.
Don't know how we do it.
I know. It's our classic Friendship 101. We always end with a yeah.
Yeah. That's it.
That's all we got.
That's all we got, but it's just bye.
Thank you.
But I think it's a great reminder though, and I think you even bringing that up to me and Laura that day, of being like, oh, like maybe sometimes like if I'm staying too much on the shallow, to remember to make sure that my shallowness still has that depth, still has that authenticity.
Yeah.
Because of course it'd be easy to, forget that and then just become extremely actual, superficial and fake, and then not actually give anything of myself away. But like to kind of be aware of that in friendships, and if you really just need to go deep because as you just have been your version of shallow all day, then hey, you know what? I can dive in with you for a bit because I know we're not going to stay down there forever.
Right.
Right. And I think it's just understanding where our friends are at, but also realizing that you could be fully yourself in the depth, in the shallow.
Yeah. That's great.
Is that a good way to wrap it up?
Honestly, yeah. I was like, that's a nice little like bow.
Fantastic.
Nice
I need that
at the
sometimes.
End. Yeah.
I really do.
Anyway.
Wow, it's hard to believe this chat's already over.
I know. It felt very like chill. I mean, we've gone 30 minutes at least around. Wow.
We're just get the two girls talking.
Just get us
talking.
Get us yapping.
Yeah.
But anyway, Courtney, you want to give them a little salut, a little goodbye, a little here's where you can find
a little au revoir.
The classic outro.
Oh, thank you. I'm not gonna lie. I thought you were like, are you gonna tell them the thing? And I'm like, I missed
Courtney,
a memo.
Remember that thing we talked about? Tell them.
I almost got excited. Like, do we have something fun coming up?
I didn't tell you, Courtney, but actually we have. No, new guest walks in. Mark Zuckerberg.
Don't even.
I'm kidding. That'd be crazy.
My dream podcast.
One day, Courtney, as a surprise, I'm gonna get Mark Zuckerberg. I'm not gonna tell you either. We're just gonna start filming, and I'm gonna be like, Courtney, I got a special guest for us.
That means I have to start preparing now.
Write the questions down. Write them down.
Write them down. Yeah, a lot of people don't agree with me. That's the dream podcast guest, but I think he's just so fascinating.
Fascinating man, yeah.
And I think any of us could be Mark Zuckerberg.
That is a whole other podcast topic. But I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Now or later.
Definitely later. I don't know if I can do it right now.
That is so fair. Anyway, on that note, guys, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of The Anchor of the Week. You know where to find us throughout the weeks on social media, on Instagram, TikTok. Like, rate, comment, however you leave feedback for podcasts on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and probably other things that I am unfamiliar with.
Yeah, I don't even know.
There's a lot, but we don't know them. Anyway, guys, hopefully you have a great rest of your day, and we will see you in 2 weeks.